Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here at the Women in Construction Summit to discuss the topic of redefining success. I am Bernadette Reyes. I am Vice President for Architecture and Design for the National Program at Public Storage, but I have 20 years of industry experience across the architecture and general contractor world. And I'm here today, hopefully, to share some ideas, inspire you to think differently, think outside the box in regards to what success means to you and to me. So, key objectives that we want to go over today, and hopefully you'll think through that as we go through our discussion. One, talk about the usual steps of how you could help yourself go through a new form of a success and define your own success. And I'm going to talk about some examples that I've experienced personally to hopefully spark some ideas on how maybe your outlook could potentially change. The other thing we're going to talk about is how you could help influence your perspective on with others and redefine and as part of redefining your own success. So why are we here? Perhaps you are in a rut in your career, or you are seeking a bigger meaning, or maybe your project milestones or your day-to-day milestones at work isn't doing it for you. It could be whatever reason why you're here, but perhaps maybe you find yourself like I was about 6 years ago. I got promoted, got a additional bonus. I got the raise in salary. And for whatever reason, it felt very empty. Like it was great to get the accolade. It was great to get the recognition, but it wasn't fulfilling. And that's what brought me to that question, this particular question, why are we here 6 years ago? And when I realized that there was this emptiness or maybe not satisfied with the results of being promoted, I had to do a little bit of reflection as to why. And, before we get started, or before I got started, I had to define and figure out what success meant. And according to Webster's dictionary, the degree of measure of succeeding that results in a favorable or desired outcome, also such as an attainment of wealth, favor, eminence, is that definition. It's like, well, I achieved that. Maybe you achieved that too. But it wasn't really that encompassing. It really reflected a corporate ladder or reflected a trajectory. And I came to realize that now in my career, it it's not going vertical. It could be horizontal. It could be every which way to define what success is about. So um, that's how I've come up with my own definition, which is success is no longer singularly defined as climbing the corporate ladder or quantified financially. It's a bit vague. It's on purpose that it's vague because it provides me the flexibility to define success on a day-to-day level, on a corporate level. It provides me the empowerment to find my own success and enjoy it. Now, success is different for everyone. Maybe it is that promotion, or maybe it's processing a very difficult change order, and you knocked it out of the park. It may not result in anything monetary or uh, recognition, but it meant a lot to you, and that's success. And you had a triumphant negotiation. Um, it could be really anything. It could be even like, you know what? I'm prioritizing my family. I need to come home, and I am balancing what my responsibilities are at work and my responsibilities at home successfully. It could mean anything. It's up to you how you define it. Now, in order to be successful, uh, actually identifying what success is, you have to have some framework. So there's let's start off with identifying issues. Uh, why starting with identifying issues? Well, normally challenges, issues, holes are great opportunities for you to one identify an opportunity for success, and it's actually a very clear benchmark of what can be improved and help you measure have you succeeded in filling that that hole, that issue, that challenge, that gap. It could be a policy at work. It could be a better work experience for yourself or others. It could be, like I said, day-to-day work uh, opportunities or organizational gaps. It could range, but it's really important to identify what that issue is or what that gap is, because again, it helps baseline your measurement of success. Now that you did that, what do you do about it? Well, first off, we need to recognize that issues and challenges are inevitable, even when you're trying to execute a solution or an improvement. So, first off is recognizing that. And then also, like, you have to be committed to what your idea is. You can't half work through the idea. You have to work through the entire idea and make sure it's through the motion so you could actually get to the end result that you're desiring. And you have to be proactively involved. It may be more transparent in some cases than others. Like, for instance, going back to the change order example, you have a final negotiation and you resulted in whatever agreement that you needed to achieve. That's very tangible, that's very clear. Or it could be something that you influence others and it takes a little bit more time to achieve. Maybe it's a policy influence um, uh, solution, but that requires a little bit more proactiveness, a little bit more steadiness, a little bit more time involvement. The other thing you need to keep in mind is, like, you can't do it by yourself. Sometimes these successes, or almost all the times, you have to communicate what your intent is. You have to influence others to believe in the goals and why you think why they should be thinking it's as important as you do. Now, this is kind of an interesting thing. I found it important. I have to hold not only myself accountable, but others who need to be involved in the decisions accountable. So, setting up leadership meetings or touching base with people, whatever you call it. But the key thing is making sure that everyone who's involved needs to be at the table discussing and be as proactive as you are in order to achieve the results. Now, obviously, the core thing to figure out is who makes the final decision. Um, you may not figure that out by yourself. You may have to use other people to help inform you of that. But it's important for you to know, like, who makes the final decision, because what's the point of putting all your effort and time into improving something and you can't get anywhere because you find out the person who you need to influence the most isn't on board with your idea. And then this is something that's important, like your commitment to the success means they will be successful not only to the end result that you're achieving, but the others who will be impacted. So it's a success for all. And I think that's important for you to have that mindset and realize very early on. Now, the other thing that's very important about success, unlike getting a tangible check or promotion, you need to figure out how to recognize those successes and celebrate them. Again, not in the traditional sense of the definition, but you need to be able to enjoy that. So one of the key things I recommend is outlining the goals and milestones that are easily identifiable. Did you have certain key decisions made? Did you have, once you've identified the issue, did you have key decisions made? Did you influence the right people? Did you set dates when certain policies will be launched? Whatever it may be, figure out what those goals are and write them down. Now, for myself, it's writing on a piece of paper is actually a lot easier, but that helps me visually see what the framework will be and how to achieve that. And I, especially when I have an idea, I write it down to make sure that I have all the key milestones and goals. I will forget at the end of it what it went into it, and I will also miss the key things I need to reflect at the end of this entire process. Now, the other thing you should do is establish how you want to celebrate the success. Is it happy hour or now virtual happy hour with colleagues and coworkers? Is it treating yourself to getting your hair done? Is it taking yourself to a nice dinner? Is it sharing the win with your significant other, whatever it may be? Identify how you want to celebrate that success once you recognize that the goals and milestones are met. And it's very important for you to pause and reflect. I kind of alluded to that a little bit earlier. And sometimes we just bulldoze through things and we make like, okay, great, that's done. We move forward, especially like going with a very tangible thing like a change order. I'm using that as an example. Like, signed off, you move forward, you go to the next task. Well, those tasks are provided to you, but when when you're providing the task to yourself and you're identifying what you want to achieve, make sure you pause and reflect when your goals are met and actually celebrate them. Because if not, you're going to feel like you're overworked. No one, uh, you'll feel unsatisfied, potentially you feel frustrated. And that's not the point of this effort. Really, the goal is to identify other win opportunities and other success stories for yourself. So, going into some examples, um, I'm going to talk at three different types of examples because sometimes, depending on what our roles are at your respective company or organizations, your your success stories and your opportunities may be different. And example one is the project level success. Um, I'll give you an example from my uh, story. And I'm not going to talk about change order. I'm not talking about schedule milestones like topping out. I'm not talking or anything that is like specifically project driven. Um, for me, a project level success is when I actually worked in the courthouse uh, about, gosh, about 7 years ago. And I was asked to work with very difficult clients with even more difficult end users. And the end users were federal judges who had very strong opinions. And I, that relationship had to be fostered and blossomed, and in order to make key decisions and to move forward the project. And when I recognized that there was an opportunity to do that in order to help the overall process and improve our project relations, I found it important to set that as a goal that it needed to be done. And how I measured the successes from a short term perspective: are we making the progress that we need to make in order to achieve those more tangible milestones, like meeting the schedule, meeting the deliverables, meeting all the construction milestones? And the less tangible goal was, did these judges want to work with me again? And so in this particular case, it took a little bit of while for me to actually establish the relationship, but I worked at it. And there was a couple federal judges. After a while, they will pick up the phone and call me, and they felt comfortable talking to me. We would have sidebar discussions. And granted, it took a little bit more time and effort on my end, um, but the end result, we delivered our project on time. We delivered our project, and we hit all of the milestones. They were happy. The client was happy. And fast forward to this day, I still actually keep in contact with the federal judges, and I actually have lunch. Or now, like, we virtually catch it from time to time, um, to this day. And to me, that's a success and that's a win. And I still to this day, I'm very happy and proud by that. And again, it's a soft, tangible example that could have a greater good on the project. So think outside the box in regards to what you're doing day to day in your tasks, and see how that level of success could be used for yourself to help motivate you for the next role and responsibility. For me, how I celebrated, I took myself to the movies, and again, I went to go see. I can't remember what movie it was, but I was very excited to take myself to the movies that day, and I celebrated that way. That's how I celebrated. It could be whatever you want to do. The next example is the personnel level. So this could be a colleague, this could be someone who is a direct report, it could be someone that you work for and report to. My story. and my example is actually someone who reported to me. I actually had an opportunity to, at the time, uh, foster and grow the Western region pre-construction department for a national company that we were, trying to strengthen out here in California. And I was uh, getting to know all the people on my team, and I realized that there was a potential gap in roles and responsibilities that could help strengthen the presence of my company on a regional level. Um, we had estimating, we had marketing, business development, pre-construction. That was very clear and defined. And though we had a national level of small business outreach, coordination, and leadership, we didn't have a local presence. And that to me was a gap. So I found that as an opportunity to help improve the company. But I also found it important to identify someone from within who could potentially step into that role. And I was pleasantly surprised when I met someone on the team who she was basically answering phone calls. That's all she was doing, and she was more of an administrative side of things. But her personality, her perseverance, her willingness to learn really inspired me. And she didn't have any trained construction acumen, and that's where I realized, okay, maybe she has a personal gap there, but she has the opportunity to grow. I identified the problem, or the gap really, with the organization, identified a solution, and I set milestones. Like, and I, for her and myself, we worked together. I mentored her. We went to industry events, and I took the time, my own time, to make sure that she was grasping the topics and in learning and growing. And for me, the way I celebrated her success is actually seeing her gain confidence and seeing her take ownership of her role and responsibilities as the time went on. And to this day, though I'm no longer working with her, to this day, I keep in contact with her to see how she's doing. And when she reaches a milestone or an accolade now in the industry, I'm very happy for her. I celebrate with her. I tell her congratulations, and we keep that rapport. And for me, that was a win-win for both of us and for the organization. So that's an opportunity for you to potentially reflect, like, is there an opportunity for others that you could help influence or help the organization or your project or career um, to grow? And like I said, it wasn't my success, it was her success, but it was great to see her step into that positive role. The third example is a little bit more drawn out, it's a little bit more challenging, it's a little bit harder to define. This is an organizational and policy level success. So the current company I work for um, is very large. We have over 5,000 employees, and it's primarily operational driven in the retail and self storage market, and which is great. But we have smaller groups within the organization that provides the support for sales and operations, one of which is the real estate department, which I belong to. And we have a very robust continuing education program for all of our sales and operations. However, we had a gap with with our real estate department. And we have trained professionals covering developers, construction managers, architects, and designers. Yet continuing education was kind of a void. And I, on this one, I had to self-reflect because it was actually somewhat like driven because like I needed continuing education. I needed to make sure that things were getting done. Then once I identified the gap, I didn't only take the gap. Okay, we got a problem. I wanted to go report it to someone, do something about it. I was proactive about it. I wrote down what the issues are. I wrote down why it was important to have continuing education, like employee retention, employee morale, engagement with the group. We're a robust group of like 50 people. And we did have some physical challenges because we're across 38 states. So how do we unify everyone? But instead of just going with the problems of like, and here's the reasons why we should do it, I came up with some solutions. I I proactively wrote down, like, maybe we have vendors do virtual lunch and learns. Do we do our own lessons learned lunch and learns? How frequently should we be meeting? Are there? I started doing research of industry events that potentially we could attend. Now, obviously, physically is off the table, but virtually, I wrote all those ideas down, and then I set up a meeting with our HR and learning development and training program. And it was well received because one, it wasn't a here's a problem checked across the table, but it was more like, okay, you brought solutions to the table. Now, is learning and development and creating a training curriculum in my day to day? No. Do I have time to do it on my own? No. Is that something that where I needed to leverage help? Absolutely. So this was actually one of the more challenging things to implement because I had to let it go and pass that to someone else to manage, to run, and maintain. But I didn't want to lose my seat at the table. So I ensured that I was part of the dialogue. I helped identify key people who could influence the curriculum at the table, and we included from facilities and operating maintenance to our entire real estate department, key leaders throughout each of the that was represented at the table, so we could get buy-in. And as things started progressing, we started setting milestones and like, when should we launch? How should we launch? What's the message? And we aligned ourselves with the larger overall corporate goals. And it took us about 4 months to get everything outlined. And we identified vendors and like we identified people who could do the lunch and learns. We identified team members to take the lead on discussions or moderators. And by having everyone buy into the idea, it's been a success. And now it's been about a year since we've implemented this, and I'm very excited. And when we launched it, at first, I was like, okay, is this a win? But when it was well received and we received survey feedback, I know that an idea that I had that started the engine was a success. Was I involved with every single step and every single detail of outlining every presentation or meeting? No. But I worked with my team, worked with my company to help identify that gap and to put together a solution that worked with everyone. And I found that as a success. And how I celebrated it, I took myself to go get ice cream. And that was for me. But that, again, that could be anything on your level of organization. It could be training. It could be maybe there is a policy that you don't agree with that maybe needs to be updated. Um, or maybe there's a gap in your organization. It could, in regarding to like representation, diversity and inclusion, whatever the topic may be. The worst thing you could do is if you identify the gap and you, one, don't act upon it, and you describe about it, and two, is you have no solutions or actually like vision and or set up your own milestones to achieve whatever goal you're trying to achieve. So those are some of my examples that I have and how I celebrate it. But again, the key thing you need to remember is that the measurement of success is no longer just a wealth or a title or promotion. It's not that vertical ladder. It's more like the shadow that you see on the PowerPoint. It could go like in a diagonal, it could go horizontal, whatever it may be. And it doesn't have to be all the way to the top. It could just be the next step over, whatever it may be, um, in what you're trying to achieve. But it's important for you to take ownership of it, empower yourself to realize that you could have successes throughout the day, throughout the weeks, throughout the month, during those times of major milestone promotions that are more traditional in our industry. With that, I'm here to answer any questions. I'm happy to provide you any insights. Uh, again, I'm humbled and excited to be here. I'll take any questions. Thank you.